It might have been in qualifying too.
You're an idiot.
I'll find it and I'll let you know.
Good morning to all of you diehard Oz F1 fans. We are here, sans James, again. It's just the Thomases. Campy, how are you?
Good, mate. How are you? Should we tell them why we're really by ourselves?
Because James is...
He finally got a full-time job and he's decided
He's a big boy.
He can't do the podcast now.
I thought he's doing witness protection and he's on the run. We'll go with your story then.
There's been a few choice deaths up in Sydney. Might have had something to do with it.
Mate, I jinxed it. We were talking yesterday and I was going, it's Snore-Ricard, it's boring, it's the worst, and we've had a ripper.
Well, generally it is a snore fest, but I'll tell you what, that was a bloody excellent race. From start to finish, it was excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, man, the fight between Lewis and Valtteri, the whole race, it was there, the whole race. When Max pitted, got back in front of Lewis, and Lewis lost track position. I think that 10 laps where they had Valtteri and him and Lewis in the DRS zone of Max was just, That's why we watch this sport. It was cracking to watch.
This is exactly what you would want as a race director, as a TV director. This is what they're aiming for with tyre strategy, everything. This is like peak Formula One kind of strategy stuff where it's anything's to play for, multiple strategies can work. That's exactly what we want in Formula One.
Oh, mate, unbelievable. This is the pin-up race of why you watch this sport. And
for all it's cracked up to be, there's actually some decent passing opportunities, and we saw a lot of on-track passes, which is not what we expected from Paul Ricard.
No, there was talk. I know there was talk about on the back straight. There's been talk about knocking out the chicane so they get more of a run.
That'd be fast.
Then it would just be overpowered. But last night, I thought for the first 10 laps when everyone's on fresh rubber, I thought, geez, we're just going to see more of the same, particularly when Danny Rick was trying to pass Alonso early. Yeah. I thought, geez, he just needs that extra couple of 100 metres or just to push it. But as the tyre started to wear off, there was passing on track everywhere, which was good to see. We saw passing everywhere, right throughout the pack too. Yeah. So, sensational Grand Prix. So I'll give it up to the French. I'll eat some more humble pie. You've done something good.
You've got a steady diet of humble pie, haven't you?
I know. It's showing too.
Let's quickly jump into the start. What did you see off the start?
It's exactly what we predicted was going to happen. Someone was going to go off.
Yeah.
We thought one of the two drivers between Max or Lewis was going to push someone wide, but it was ultimately Max. He threw the car in and not enough heat in the tyres, and it just
a tailwind maybe.
I don't think it was a tailwind.
Rosberg was pretty convinced of a tailwind, and he was pretty happy that his prediction came correct almost.
Well, Rosberg knows what he's talking about.
Rosberg loves a bit of Rosberg, really.
Rosberg loves talking about himself.
It's like, you went out there, you didn't win.
He's the new Caroon.
No, so it seems like, just outbraked himself and ended up.
No, I don't think he outbraked himself. I just think when he went to get the fronts in the right direction, and it just understeered, and he just went wide, and the back end slightly stiffed out. But I don't put that down to weather. To wind. I just put that down to his tyres weren't hard enough, and he didn't have the angle that Lewis had on the turn either. So,
and like if you're gonna go off, he came back on exactly the right way because he actually made turn one. They were talking about. He didn't have to do the full escape road rejoin after turn 3 or whatever it was. He could just continue. And first lap, first corner, they're pretty lenient usually, aren't they?
Yeah, cracking job not to hit those bollards too. Those two little yellow goalposts there. And not to let
Bottas through too,
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. I mean, it would have spiced it up a bit more, but geez, it was the start we wanted, really.
Yeah, everyone else kind of stayed in their own positions except for our boy.
Danny Rick. Yeah, he alluded to after the race that he that he watched his onboard from a couple of years ago, 2019, when he was in the Renault, and he said he stayed in the middle and he just was stuck in no man's land.
Yep.
So he said, if I see a gap on the outside, I'm just going to open it right up, which he did because he was behind Norris at the time. He got a good start, but he just went right on the outside, pretty much over track limits, really.
Yeah.
Just brake late, got in front of everyone, and he probably should have had Alonso out of the turn 2, really.
Yeah.
Because it's a little chicane kink there, but didn't have the drive off the exit. But sensational.
Good to see.
We saw, you know what? We saw a bit of Danny Rick of old.
Oh,
we'll get there. I think
McLaren
shit the bed a bit on strategy, but we'll get to that. It was good to see Danny Rick. It was
good.
Oh,
all right.
Let's get into it.
Back to the back.
Team by team.
Back to the back. Haas. Didn't see anything. We didn't actually get to see anything on track, did we?
We saw Schumacher make the pass on Mazepin real early.
Yep.
Threw it up the inside. They touched front. I think it was Schumacher's front left.
Yeah.
And Mazepin's front right. But that's cool. That's racing. You're allowed to do that.
I don't think they like each other.
But then Mazepin got in front of him somehow. And I'm like, how did that happen?
It's probably because Haas had 20 pit stops.
Well,
they do that stuff.
No, I think Brundle alluded to the fact that Schumacher went wide and had to
give it back, maybe.
Well, I don't know. When you go over track limits, you're supposed to, at a certain point, you're supposed to go through some yellow goalposts around the track to make it fair.
Just have gravel. Just have gravel.
I know. Anyway, imagine that if it had been gravel for Max on lap 1.
Yeah.
Race over.
Yeah.
He still would have come through the pack, but race over. Anyway, look, I don't mind. It was a good race, so I don't
really
care.
But
Schumacher ended up beating Mazepin, which is good. Schumacher doesn't matter where he is compared to Mazepin.
Yeah.
He's always going to pass him on the first lap.
Yep.
Even if he gets out qualified or something happens in qualifying or he starts from the rear grid, he's always going to pass him anyway. So that's what we want to see.
Have we seen anyone as bad as Mazepin in F1 for this long? When was the last one we've had a driver this far off the pace? Because he's against a rookie and he's getting absolutely panned.
We've had some shocking test drivers.
Yes. But this guy's actually a paid driver for a whole season. He's that far off the pace.
Is he a paid driver? I don't know if he's a paid driver. His dad pays him. That doesn't really count. Yeah. Have we seen a worse driver? Have we seen a worse driver?
No, it's going to be a while.
Not in recent history.
No.
I'm not up on my F1 history from
But he's going to be in the top few, isn't he? Of worst drivers we've seen get a seat.
Worst drivers to get a whole season.
Yeah.
In a car.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
He must be throwing a lot of cash at that team.
Oh, I think it's going to be announced pretty soon that he's bought Haas. That his dad's bought Haas.
And they'll probably change the name from Haas.
It'll be Rich Energy.
Haas can get out.
No, it'll be Rich Energy something, and Rich Energy's gonna because what's his name? William Story's best mates with Mazepin's dad.
That is a duo I do not want to see. Speaking of more duos, I don't want to see the Williams boys.
All credit to George Russell.
Still didn't get a point though. So
he
talk to me when you get a point, pal.
Finished 12th.
Yeah, get a point.
And he was the last car to get overlapped that got lapped. So
that's something, I guess.
It's good for him. That's good for Williams.
Oh.
Their benchmark for the last 2 or 3 years has been at least 3 laps overtaken. So
and full credit to George. He's getting out of Q1 every week, which is good. He's always in Q2.
Yeah.
He does nothing in it, but he's always getting close to the fringes of the top 10, which is what he needs to do. He does. And until that car is on new regs and he can do something competitive with it, I just don't know if we're going to see any points or anything competitive, really.
And the problem with their races is that we don't see enough of it on TV to follow it.
Can't judge it, really, can we?
I watch more of the timing screen on the left.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out distances for Danny Rick and what he needs to do to get in it. You're still watching the screen, but if you're not, I'm not disciplined enough or I don't really care enough to be watching what's happening for the Williams. And
you can't, though, because it just doesn't get covered. We end up watching front runners for just go round with no chance of overtakes.
Yeah, I was a bit frustrated with the TV director.
There was some good stuff. We can't really complain a lot. We did get to see a lot of Danny, but you're right. In general, there's some really interesting stuff that you'd like to see as opposed to someone clearly not going to get overtaken on that lap. So.
Yeah, totally. I think they're pretty good with that little camera on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
that's good.
Better.
They could be more proactive about it, in my opinion. But no, we're getting picky now. It was a great race. I don't want to sound cynical on a Monday morning at 5 o'clock or something stupid.
It's hard not to sound cynical when it's this early in the morning.
Man,
it just comes out.
Great, cracking race though. Good on the French.
Really was.
The French are back.
Quickly,
the French are out of the bin.
Give me your thoughts on the anthem. What did you reckon?
Oh, shit ass.
I thought the same thing.
Oh.
Can someone please tune a brass instrument? They all sounded flat as hell.
Yeah, look.
It was ridiculous, isn't it?
Look, I am very sceptical of an anthem when it is in a minor key like we heard in Baku last week, 2 weeks ago. Oh, it just reeks of communism.
There you go.
So it's not as bad. I mean, the Azerbaijan one was brilliant, but in comparison,
so good.
This one was flat. You're right.
It was gross,
musically flat. It had no energy. It had nothing. Yeah, you want to hear a national anthem. You want to be fired. You want to be passionate.
Yeah, that one was almost like the giving up of anthems, wasn't it?
I mean, if you want to see a good French national anthem, watch their national rugby team play a game, an international game, and you see the boys and
get up and about.
They all look like me, and they're all crying and they're passionate. That's what you want to see. But that was shit ass.
What wasn't was the flyover.
That flyover was good.
I don't know about the helicopter and the paratroopers dropping down with the trophies. That was a bit excessive.
What was with the trophies? What was the big...
The big gorilla's been there for however long. I don't know. It's part of Paul Ricard.
Is it? Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Know why. I don't think gorillas are native to France. But
they film a King Kong movie there or something.
No. I'm sure someone will tell us in the Discord. If you know why it's a gorilla.
Well, Bernie's ex-missus owns that track, doesn't she?
I'm not sure.
She does?
Jeez.
Mr. Dave Munnis was telling us that.
Is that a little legacy that she's still getting cash even though he's not running?
Well, I know where that came from. He's looking at his assets and he's going, I've got to give her something. I'll just give her Paul Ricard.
In the divorce. He's gone, she won't know if it's not a good race.
She doesn't want to sell it either.
If you owned tracks, which one would you give up?
Paul Ricard.
Yeah, exactly. He's nailed it there.
No, it's actually a good track for other.
Totally.
It was great. It was a great track last night.
But it's genuinely, the cars are too wide. It's too fast, and then the last section, any gains you've made, you just lose. But we can't complain.
No, we can't complain. We can't complain.
Let's jump into Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, again, didn't say enough of him.
See enough. Genuinely, I don't think Giovinazzi exists. I think he's a figment of our imagination, and he's been invented because I never see that guy on track.
I've never seen him interviewed.
I've never seen him. He doesn't exist. You can't tell me that guy is real.
Go, conspiracies with Tommy. Go into it. Tell me more.
Have you ever seen the guy be interviewed? Have you seen him on track? Have you seen?
I have seen him being interviewed. Actually,
I think
he had a man bun. He had a man bun hologram.
I think it's a hologram.
Like the
running
Pope.
around. Yep, exactly. And like Tupac.
Did you see that? Did you see that video of the Pope on the? He's speaking from and then he disappears. It's like
it's clearly not.
What?
He's just been taken to above.
We've been sold a lemon. Been sold a lemon by the world mainstream media, I think.
Yeah, you can't convince me that guy's real. I think he is just a figment of Formula One, just making him up, just to keep fans happy. I don't know. Let's see more of the guy. I'd like to see something because this year he's actually been out qualifying Raikkonen a fair bit and
you're right.
beating him on track.
Yep.
But we see more Raikkonen than we see a Giovinazzi.
We love Raikkonen.
It's true.
And Italian Jesus, he's clearly not good on...
just allergic to cameras.
Western media.
Kimi was frustrating us for a little bit there when the McLarens were trying to get through.
Only for one lap.
And then we forgave him, and then it was all good again.
It was. Yeah, I didn't see much of them look good. I mean, that's all Giovinazzi has to do, really.
Yeah.
Beat his teammate.
Yep. I think if he continues doing what he's doing, he will keep that seat. And they'll give him a run into the start of the new regulations at least because why not?
I actually think that car probably should be better than what it's performing at.
Yeah.
Really. If I'm honest, the Ferrari motor's a good motor.
Yeah.
Last year they had a good excuse because it was a stinker and they couldn't do anything. This year you'd think that the motor's pretty good. It's pretty good in a straight line. It's just the chassis and where that's at. And clearly Alpha's just got a history of not having great chassis. I mean, they got a good enough and a reasonable driving lineup.
Yeah.
So it's the chassis that's letting them down. But you never know. They could have been affected by the pressure changes in the tyres this weekend.
Yeah, that's something we haven't talked about.
Pirelli put it up to 2 PSI.
It sounds like a Band-Aid
on the rears. A Band-Aid, but look what it did to Ferrari.
Yeah, just plummeted, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I love to see. Right.
Speaking of Ferrari, they were both, what was it, 5th and 7th on the grid, I think it was?
Yeah, yep.
Ended up Sainz in 11, Leclerc in 16. Leclerc plummeted and had to pit again. I don't know what he did. He just spent his tyres early, whether it was, I don't know, the low downforce deg maybe or something, but they were struggling on tyres, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Particularly Leclerc. I was shocked how far he fell back through the grid on track and race pace. Like, he's getting passed by everybody. Like, even Esteban Ocon and, Giovinazzi to beat the works Ferrari.
Yeah.
I know some strategy played into a bit of that, but they're quick they were quick for the first 10 laps on new rubber.
Yep.
But it seems like, and I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to tyre pressures and the way the engineers get around these issues. It seems to me if you've got high tyre pressures, your car should be faster, and it should, like, the load on the tyres is less because there's more pressure in it, right? Does that make sense? But
then you got less grip.
Well, the problem...
Because there's less tyre applied to the road.
Well, the problem is that Ferrari seem to lose most out of the pressures being where they're at.
Yep.
So their team's got a lot of work to do between now and next week to figure something out.
Yep.
Or maybe Pirelli just bring a harder set of compounds to Austria because Ferrari can veto that decision.
Ferrari's got ultimate veto power.
And go back to the normal pressures.
Also, they probably just went more of a quality setup than a race spec. Because they qualified well.
Yeah.
And maybe if they had to run a bit different downforce setup, they might have been able to hang on to tyres for longer.
I think teams expected it to be not as easy to overtake as well.
I think you're right. Yep.
I don't think anyone expected the amount of overtakes we had on track and the degradation of the tyres as well.
Yeah, it seemed like the first 10 laps, like you said, it was actually pretty even, and then it just opened up. And then DRS passes were easy at that stage.
Yep.
All of a sudden, it was just like
you had
breezing.
the tyres.
Yeah, you were breezing past people. So, very interesting to see. So, nothing more to say really about Ferrari.
I don't want to rag on him. I mean, Carlos, he'd be frustrated. He qualified superbly.
Yeah, he did so well.
Put it on 5th, best of the rest. To fall back that far in the race, I just think, geez, that's real unlucky.
Yeah, he just didn't have the car under him this week.
Yeah.
On to the ex-whipping boy, your guy, Gasly and AlphaTauri.
Best of the rest, really.
Mate, he was solid.
7th.
He struggled a bit early on those mediums, as pretty much everyone did. He tried to do his classic go long, and it didn't quite pay off.
Yep.
Because the undercut was king this week. But he recovered back. He was in the fight at the end with Alonso
and Riccardo.
Trying to get that kind of as high as possible. But good from Gasly.
That was just because of the strategy they put on Danny Rick that they were able to close up so close to him towards the end of the race. Yeah. But good car.
It is, isn't it?
I don't know where to put AlphaTauri. We talked about it yesterday, and I said, they could be the 4th best car on the grid, or grid on the car, whatever way you want to put it. Yep. But Gasly driving that car is good, and he's consistently there. He's consistently the 4th best.
Yep.
He doesn't beat the McLarens, or one week when he does beat the McLarens, he's not beating the Ferraris. So the car's there or thereabouts. It's that other race. So he's in that sort of 5th.
Yep. And then I suppose, like, you look Yuki finishing 13th from starting in the pits. Like, the car's got something, doesn't it? Like,
Yep. And what's that? I think they're more of a sister team this year than they were last year.
Junior.
Well, because they're getting the results and they've clearly got some pace in that car.
Yep.
Over a race distance, it's nowhere near the same as a Red Bull, but over one lap, I would love to see who's a good qualifier besides Max or Lewis. Put Danny Rick.
Put a Leclerc kind of qualifier.
Or a Sainz. Put a Sainz. Yeah. I'd really like to see what a Sainz or someone would do in that car.
Yeah.
Then, if you had the opportunity to see what they would do, then you'd go, shit, there's a bit of beans in this car and it's probably better than we suggested. So,
yeah. As much as we like Yuki, can you imagine what would be happening if there was a Kvyat in that car alongside Gasly?
Well, we know what we'd get.
I think that'd be a way more competitive team. They would be nipping at the heels of McLaren and Ferrari, I think, each week.
If you look at the Kvyat and what's his name?
Gasly,
sorry. If you look at the Kvyat Gasly history,
it's pretty even, except for that.
Gasly will get the job done 3 out of 5 times, but the other 2 times and the times he loses, Kvyat's right there, and Kvyat can always work himself into positions where he can get podiums. As I said, I think his year was overshadowed by Gasly's win last year because he got a couple of podiums. And he got a couple of podiums the year before, or 1 podium, I believe, and Gasly got 1 too. So, these guys, and they're opportunistic when the time comes and they get things right. That can easily fail if you get stuck into the status quo of what everyone else is doing. But that's the strength of AlphaTauri. And
you just wonder if our absent James would say, if they hadn't have gone young Yuki, let him have another year in F2, kept Kvyat for this last year of regs and then brought in a rookie. I don't know. Like, as a team, they'd be doing better, but then you're behind on the development, the young driver, all those kind of things. You've got to take the risk, don't you?
Well, I don't think... Look, we know why Yuki's in there. Yuki's in there to keep Honda happy. Yep. And Honda wanted a Japanese driver, so that's why they got him. I don't think it does these guys any justice bringing them in too young.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And we've seen that. We've seen that with Albon.
Yeah.
Who else? Sonoda. Who else came in way too early?
The ones that come in young
Mazepin.
And stick. Like you've got Max, and he's the other end of, like, the sooner you could get Max in that car, the better.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I just don't think it does these guys any longevity in the sport. If you get it right, then you're sweet.
Yep.
But if you don't, we just see too many careers ruined by it, or reputations tainted because they're not ready. I'd love to see, like, we got Piastri coming up in F3.
Yeah.
Who's a bona fide superstar and as good as they get.
Yep.
Into a new category this year, winning F3, steps into F2, and the first 3 races, clearly the best driver. Some things have happened and he's not in front of the points, but clearly the best driver. Now, if he can make that same step up into F1 and have the same sort of results and take to it like it's, a fish in water, then great.
That's what we want.
But I would much prefer Webber as his manager to go, look, you know what, mate? If you win F2 this year and you can't get a drive for next year, I'm happy about that. We're going to go and stick you in another couple of categories around the world. We'll just keep you driving, keep you on top of your craft, learn more about the off-track side of the sport and the engineers and the way that works while doing some testing and while staying relevant in F1. Hold him off to 2023, 2024. You don't want to stay out of it too long, but a year's the max. We saw what happened to Stoffel Van Dorn when he sat out for a whole year to get that McLaren seat.
Forgotten.
That's the risk. But if I'm Webber, I'm saying, look, we don't need to rush in and get you into a shit team in a shit car just for the sake of getting you in at young. And I think Piastri, either way, he'll step up and do the right thing. But as his manager, I think Webber should. That's.
As a Renault young driver, we can talk about Alpine now because they've just signed Ocon. So maybe that path straight into that team is not as logical now.
Well,
so he might have to go elsewhere first.
Well, Guangzhou's probably ahead of him in the terms of development from Renault. Yeah. And Guangzhou's leading the F2 championship at the moment. But I don't, like, Guangzhou, for me, he's the guy that wins the 2 race 1 and 2. Because he qualifies 10th and because it's reverse grid. He starts on pole and gets that win, and then he can come through and pick up solid points,
But
in the feature race, he's never the one to be winning it where it should be when maximum
to be
points.
Honest, similar to Schumacher in that respect as well. Never race winner, but just consistent point collector.
Yeah. So anyway, but Piastri for me, it's interesting with Alpine, because what do they do with Alonso? Are they set on giving Alonso 2 years now?
I think they're going to give Alonso the keys until he doesn't want them. I don't think you could go, please come back, Alonso, and then fire him. I don't think he's going to let that fly.
But for me,
7th
race in the car. Yep. Alonso's been saying publicly he's struggling, he's not turning grips. But what is clear in the last 2 races is that the guy has turned a page and he's getting more out of the car than Ocon is.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm sitting here and going, why on earth would you give him 3 years now? Because they wanted to lock him up to say to Mercedes, no, you can't have him because we want him. But then 3 years, that is a long time in this sport.
Yep.
No one's on a 3-year contract other than Charles Leclerc. He was on a 5-year from Ferrari.
Yep.
It's going to backfire in their face because if Fernando Alonso over the space of a season starts spanking Ocon like he was getting last year, then they're stuck with him to 2025.
It's 2023, I think it is, the end of that season. So
2022, 2023, 2024. Yeah. So that to me is just like, what are you doing with the young drivers in the program? Where do they fit? We know you can rip up contracts at any time and pay it out because you got the cash to do it, but doesn't make a lot of sense.
We talked about yesterday. It doesn't make sense because it's not like there was. I don't think he was in the eye of Mercedes going to be that driver anyway.
No,
they can think that all they want, but I don't think Toto Wolff was going, that guy's really showed us something compared to George Russell, which they still think is going to be the guy, or VB's going to stay there.
Props to Ocon's manager, though.
He got paid too.
Yeah, well, and he got him 3 years. So, that was probably the cherry. That was probably the argument point. So,
could he have come out and got some points this week, maybe?
Probably.
He got 14th. That's at his home Grand Prix.
And qualified 11th. Free tyre choice. Started on the hards.
Did he start on the hards, did he?
Yeah, he started on the hards,
really?
Started on the hards. And started in front of Vettel and who was behind Vettel, who was also on the hards. Not Stroll, he qualified shit.
Stroll was
who was Giovinazzi and Russell. So, I mean...
Yeah.
But to still get past
I know.
Vettel, and drop back to 14th and lose positions when you start on that alternate strategy, which was the quicker strategy and the best strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating.
I don't know. You would like to think after a contract like that, they talk about the NBA sometimes actually, you play really hard going into contract negotiations. As soon as you get this signed on the dotted line, it's
a bit like that. Oh, we don't have a job next year, so we play better this year, drive better, do what we do.
And as soon as you secure that money, it's like, relax.
Yeah, well, that's what Harden did yesterday, wasn't it? Jeez, Brooklyn shit the bed, Tommy. What's going on there?
Mate, KD was another inch back. That 3 would have counted, and it would have won. So it's all good. It's an inch. It's literally an inch. But yes, that's our other podcast that doesn't exist quite yet.
Yeah.
Aston Martin. Sebastian
is back.
Mate.
He's back.
That guy
Excellent result.
He looks like he's found the fountain of youth. He's had a big swim, and he's come back.
Yeah.
These last 3 races, he has been very competitive, making moves on track. I think you could say like the first 3-4 races of the year, he was timid. He was kind of just passive running around the track, not really being aggressive and asserting himself. The last 3, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, a great result for him. I mean, got in the points. Both of them got in the points. So 9th and 10th respectively, I think, to pass. I mean...
And Stroll had the dream strategy from the back. Like, he had nothing to lose.
You'd be looking at their starting position. You got the first 4 locked out by the 2 top teams. Then you got a couple of Ferraris in there. You got a couple of McLarens and Fernando Alonso, and they're out of the top 10. They're going, geez, how are we going to break into this top 10? Yeah. I mean, to pass an Alpine, 2 Ferraris, and lose out to like Gasly, to get both of them in the points. That's what I'm saying is
for sure.
Great result for them.
And like we mentioned, that was a potential 6th as well. Like if he was putting in the effort right to the end there, like.
Yeah,
a couple more laps, and who knows what it would have been.
I mean, the strategy was right. He just couldn't close that gap
Yep.
He was closing that gap to Alonso, which was about 8 seconds with about 5 or 6 laps to go, and he closed it into 2.
Yeah.
I mean, because Alonso and Gasly were fighting with Riccardo, that allowed him to get up a bit more too, but you're right. Another 2 or 3 laps, and that was clearly the fastest of those 4 drivers.
Big time.
Moving in, and then Stroll, I mean, Stroll finished what?
Rubbish qualifying.
20 seconds behind his teammate. How many was it? 14 seconds behind his teammate.
I
mean, over a race distance, that's nothing to starting grid positions I get.
But you're almost like you're almost not competing in the same race when you're starting in 19th, though. Do you know what I mean? You're just out there running your race. It doesn't matter what anyone else does. You're just running your strategy.
Stroll will be happy with that.
Yeah,
He knows he lost his time to his teammate on the opening 5 laps, and he was able to pass and get through the field and do what he needed to do.
Yeah.
Good for Aston Martin.
Yeah.
I mean, considering where they started.
Yeah.
They got to sort their 1 lap out.
Yeah. All right, it's time.
Right.
The time we've been waiting for. Our boy is back. It was so good to see Daniel Ricciardo confident, braking late, and just getting stuff done on track.
It was good to see.
Oh, we were like, yes. When it first started happening, like, he's in front of Norris.
Got in front.
We're like, okay, this is a good start.
Yeah.
And then we saw a couple of dives. Didn't come off initially, and then by lap 20, he'd passed everybody.
Yeah. It was like... it was good to watch. The chat was going. The chat was loving it.
Yeah.
We're up and about. I don't think he's back yet. He's still got a bit more in the car.
But you can tell he's feeling confident.
He's getting better.
Yeah.
This is like, he's not, in my opinion, he's not back, but that was the best race we've seen him race all year.
Sure.
It was a bit of Danny Rick of old, really.
Yeah.
I'm pissed off at McLaren, though, because...
Yeah. I threw this in the chat. So Norris had no chance at all of getting 4th. They were, 50 seconds or something behind?
Yeah.
Something insane, but they let Norris pass because he had faster tyres, but he only ended up, 6 seconds or something ahead of Danny? So they could have just held them and switched them back at the end because Danny really deserved that 5th over the 6th compared to Norris because he made that strategy possible for Norris.
Well, look, the problem is they pitted Danny Rick too early.
But they had to cover off and they had to force the chain reaction to give Norris clean air and all those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, so when they pitted Danny Rick so that he could get the moves, on-track moves in front of Gasly and Sainz, and he'd already passed Leclerc had got back in front of him. The problem with that first 10 to 12 laps was Danny Rick was stuck behind Leclerc, and it was that he had the pace to do it, but they were coming into traffic too. So the first 12 to 13 laps were spent between getting the gap from 2 seconds into DRS, and then as soon as he's in DRS, they're passing a Raikkonen.
Yep.
Then he loses a lap because he's got to wait to get past Raikkonen, and then he's bringing that gap back down from 2.5 seconds to DRS.
Yeah.
Whereas Norris, when everyone pitted, he was left in the free air.
Yeah. He wasn't battling anyone with similar pace. He was just flying past people slower than him.
But he had, he had that 10 to 12 lap newer rubber when he came out.
Yep.
Now, in hindsight, you would have kept Danny Rick out because he would have passed Gasly and Sainz anyway.
Yes.
And he would have had the free air to run that extra 12 to 15 laps that he wanted to run and then come out and make the passes on track, which he was going to do anyway.
Yep. It's one of those ones, though, you had to throw the dominoes to make sure the Gasly and Alonso jumped in.
But McLaren clearly had the pace to pass these guys on track, and that's what
you only really saw that on the hards, though, in their defence. You didn't see it until Danny was doing it. You're like, oh. So they were like, okay, now we know what the pace is on those hards, in traffic, all these kind of things. We can leave Norris out.
Yeah.
Stretch those tyres once they'd seen the evidence.
And that's, look, I think ultimately if Danny Rick didn't let him pass, I think Norris would have passed him on track anyway because he just had newer rubber.
Exactly, yeah.
And the toll that it takes in those first 10 to 12 laps on the hard stint, the amount of rubber that he used up, and we saw it at the end, he lost that 10-second buffer down to a second, not because he didn't have the pace, because he didn't have the tyres. So, anyway, look, Lando's lucky to get that result over his teammate today.
Yeah, I don't think he drove better than Daniel today.
No way.
Daniel drove an incredible race.
Pace was solid, but it just happened to be like Danny Rick didn't need to pit when he pitted.
He still had tyre. Yeah.
He's like, we're good, we can keep this rolling. But they said do the opposite of Gasly, and you got to follow your team in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately for Danny Rick, that points difference between him and Lando. Not that I think he cares long term, and I don't care long term either. I'm drawing a line halfway between the season and starting again, but that gap between those two is almost insurmountable now because of the positions that they're fighting for. 5th and 6th, there's no way that Danny Rick's going to make up that points difference in the championship. Not that matters. It's about the team. It's about getting third in the constructors and getting the big money. Yep. And 5th and 6th in that car.
Solid points.
Well, it just brings, it takes them 20 points ahead of Ferrari or 16 or whatever it is in the
I do think, though, that has bought some real estate in Lando's head. Danny's now going, I've got a little bit of your head, mate, because Norris would know that Daniel was faster and had a better race that day. Norris just lucked out on strategy. Yep. That wasn't on-track pace. That wasn't ability. He's
motors.
He's figured it out. This guy's coming for me. Yeah. And I think that's going to start getting to Norris now because he's been a cocky little shit this start of the year. He's talking a little bit. He's a bit chirpy. I think this is actually going to go, that guy's really good. He's starting to figure it out. I better worry.
Well, I alluded to it yesterday on the Pre-Drinks podcast, and if you didn't listen to it, I'll say it again because I know that some people don't listen to the Pre-Drinks thing because we're making predictions about a race you've already watched.
Listen to it. It's really good.
I said Lando came out and made some comments about Danny Rick's driving style, and he wasn't as adaptable as other drivers. And my basic rant yesterday was a bloody good rant. It was a great rant. The Discord loved it too, but what I said was, Lando Norris, pull your bloody head in, mate. You haven't won a race. You haven't put it on pole. You haven't even come close to doing anything in this F1 paddock other than being a good driver and generating some good headlines. Pull your head in. You've driven one car. You don't know what it's like to change teams. You don't know what it's like to drive cars. I guarantee you, if you went into a Red Bull or a Mercedes or any other car, you'd be struggling just as much as everyone else. You don't have the points in the bank to be making these comments about a driver like Daniel Riccardo. So pull your head in, son. Just relax. Your job's going to get really bloody hard in the next 2 to 3 years because it's not if. It's when Danny Rick starts to understand this car, and it's when the decisions behind closed doors in the factory, they're paying him $25 million a year, they're paying you $5 million. Yeah. That's a token bloody salary, mate. I'll tell you what, you need to get to grips with the understanding of where this sport is and what Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel see in Daniel Ricciardo. They see him as the world champion. Yep. They see you as playing a supporting role. If Danny Rick wants something in that car and he wants them to push in a direction to help his driving style, it's going that way. Life for you is going to get very tough if you don't perform like you have in the first 7 races. I can tell you right now that what we've seen from Danny Ricciardo is not indicative of what you're going to get over the next 2 to 3 years. So pull your head in and stop making stupid comments that you don't have the cash in the bank to be able to be making yet.
Campy. Do you think Zach and Andreas would be very happy with Daniel this week? I think this is what they're seeing glimmers of, like, right, this is the guy that we wanted for years before he was available. Yeah. This is the guy that we're putting our future into, and we trust that when it comes together, when this car is developed in the way that he requires, we're going to be on here. Yeah.
I mean, Zach said that in public. He's like, we've had our eye on Danny Rick for a long time. Yeah. And one thing we know about Zach is he understands what's going on in the road. Mate. He's built this team up, taking over from, who's the other guy? What's his name? I'm looking at him. Ron Dennis. Yep. Now, Ron Dennis did some great things in Formula 1, but a decisive character. And the reason why we saw such poor on-track performance from McLaren for a few years is because of the mess that Ron Dennis left behind. Yes. Now, for a guy like Zach Brown to come back in and put up with Button and Alonso for a couple of years and Gutierrez when he was in there as well. 2 engines. With Hondas, and it didn't work. Yep. A guy like Zach, he knows that this stuff doesn't happen overnight.
Yep.
There's always going to be a few hiccups in the road, but he knows how to handle the team.
Yep.
Knows how to get them working together. He's got the vision. He's got the ambition. He's made of the right stuff. The way he handles himself publicly. He knows exactly what this team is doing and where it's at from day to day, but also keeping that future ambition in check with everything they're doing for the now. They know they've got the driver lineup. If they get the car and they've got the motor. If they get the chassis right, they know that they've got the drivers that are capable of winning a world championship and getting them back on the top step if they where to be. He's got that. He doesn't care about Danny Rick's first 10 races.
No,
he cares what happens next year and the year after. Yep. And the car could be completely different next year and we might have to start all over again. But I can tell you what, Lando shouldn't be making these stupid comments, and it wouldn't surprise me if behind closed doors someone's just knocking on his door saying, come on, mate.
Shut up, pal.
Just pull your head in.
Yeah, that, I think you're spot on.
I think we've got McLaren pretty right.
Yeah.
And if you disagree, I couldn't give two shits. You're wrong.
Speaking of someone,
you're wrong because I said you're wrong.
Speaking of someone who disagrees, Bottas did not agree with the strategy he was put on.
Yep.
That poor guy was saying early, it would have been like 20 to 30. He was like, not going to be able to go here. Not going to be able to go here. We need to think about a two-stop. We need to think about a two-stop. He was saying it constantly, like, nope, we need you here to contest with Perez, blah, blah, blah. Turns out Perez got past him.
Well, they're using him as a pawn, aren't they?
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was the fodder that they threw out there to try and slow down Max Verstappen on his comeback through.
Yep.
And not only did it cost him Verstappen coming through, but also Perez.
Yep. And what did he say after the race in his interview? He said, I called out for 4 laps. I was like, there's no way this is a two-stop. Everyone's going two-stop. Yeah. Get me on the best strategy for a two-stop.
Yeah.
Didn't hear a thing back from the team. It's like they shut him off and said, no. And he said, if we had got the two-stop right when I called it, I would have won.
Yes. Well, it would have been like what Red Bull were doing because they were trying to avoid it from, what race was it? One of the rings?
Spain, wasn't it? Not Jerez.
I can't remember. The one where they did the same thing as Max did, basically. Yeah. Pit early, go a two-stop where it probably shouldn't be, and make it work.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted. That's what VB wanted to do. Is like, give me a crack at that. Let me make Max think about it, because if Bottas had pitted when he wanted to, Max would have gone, shit, that guy's probably going to be in front of me on similar fresh rubber coming back through. But then you would have just seen Lewis hold out for longer. But at least they would have tried something, and that's what VB wanted. Let the guy make his own decisions.
Yeah.
Because you were literally just letting him sit there to protect Hamilton. There was no other reason.
I don't like it. I don't like Red Bull using Perez as a pawn, and I don't like Mercedes using Bottas as a pawn. No. I understand why they do it, and I understand the need for it to put pressure on two guys that are. I mean, it's a 2-horse race if you're cynical, but I don't want to see it. I want to see two sides of the garage doing whatever they want, but they've got to fit into that team environment, and that's where the tension is sometimes in this sport. I mean, we've seen Valtteri move over for Lewis before.
Yep. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I can't see Lewis moving over for Valtteri if he's told to.
No chance.
No way.
They'll crash before that happens.
I know. Look, I don't like it, but Valtteri's right. I mean. Yep. At some level, you got to trust these guys. I mean, Valtteri was quick all weekend, but then when it mattered in qualifying, he didn't put it together. Showed some genuine pace, but he's still. Look,
but like
here's the rap on. He can't extract that extra 3 or 4 tenths for consistently over 10 laps out when he needs to.
Yep.
That Lewis does. Which puts him in these positions to almost win a race.
And unfortunately, when he did try and do that, and he did have the pace for a second there, but he's following 2 cars very closely.
Yeah.
Hammers your tyres.
Yeah.
So he was spending tyres faster than the front 2, way quicker, and then was expected to last longer than both of them.
Yep.
So, geez, you wonder why the guy's going, I've got literally no tyres. Yeah. But let's kind of jump to Red Bull, and we'll talk about both the teams. I think the Perez strategy as a pawn this time actually netted him as good a result as possible.
Totally.
Really.
Totally.
So if you're looking at the team, Red Bull first and third, that's a great points haul.
Yeah, great.
I think that is probably the ultimate result they could have got, considering they started first and fourth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with Max's stuff up at the start.
3 wins on the trot too for Red Bull.
Big.
First time that's happened in the turbo hybrid era.
Darren is going to be chirpy.
Oh, he was chirpy. He was giving Wolf shit.
Oh, they're going at it, aren't
in
they?
their interview afterwards, Wolf said, "Oh, he's got his new wings now, so we'll give him a new front one in the next couple of weeks." So there's obviously a bit of banter between them going on where it's tit for tat, but it's what we want to see.
Totally.
All right. Well, if you had to make a prediction for the rest of the year, who goes on and wins from here?
I think Red Bull's going to start walking away with it, to be honest.
Do you?
I think they're going to start walking away because a couple more of these, Mercedes is not going to have VB bought in because Perez is bought in. He's all on board.
Yep.
I think he's bleeding Red Bull right now. He's loving that.
Yep.
I think VB is going to be discontent, and you're going to also see them go, Mercedes will go, not our year, let's start focusing on next year kind of stuff, whereas I think Max is so hungry for his first championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that Lewis isn't hungry, but I think Lewis will consolidate his losses and take a second, maybe win a race here or there, and then they'll just focus for next year.
I don't. Lewis is not. I'm the other way. Lewis gets in these positions.
You poke the bear and he just comes harder.
And he does. And it's going to be one of the great Formula One seasons for a champion. I don't care about constructors between Mercedes and Red Bull.
No.
I think Red Bull probably take the constructors.
Yep.
But I think Lewis goes on to win it, and it's going to be all time. Just because in the past, like we look at not so much last year or the 2018 and 2019. We saw Ferrari challenging Red Bull like this. I don't think Ferrari was quick then, but they were definitely challenging and they put it in.
Yep.
But at the midpoint of the season where it was really tight,
that's
when Mercedes put the accelerator down and just flew up the road and decimated Ferrari. And put them in a position where we ended up.
Right, as well.
It does depend on tracks, but Mercedes, for me, history would say.
Yeah.
History's got to change. They're not going to win everyone moving forward, but history would say in this turbo hybrid era that Mercedes will put their foot down and do something to the car that just any competition they have, they leave them in their wake. So I think that's the way it'll go. Mind you, they haven't been up against Red Bull in this. They haven't been under this much pressure in a lot, since I can remember.
Yeah.
Since before turbo hybrid era.
How's that Bottas winning the championship prediction going for you?
Shit ass. My heart wants him to do well. I want the guy to come out and win 10 races for the year.
Yeah.
Because he's capable of it. But up against Lewis when Lewis is hunting and going hard.
And the team's not in his corner.
Oh, you can just see. I mean, look, Lewis can carry on like a muppet at times. And we've seen that in the last couple of weeks. When he wins, it's, thank the fans, super humble. But when he loses, the team's got a lot of work to do.
You saw it flip, so...
Like, I get it, but there's a way that you got to act off track with humility.
Yeah. I get it. He's just... We just feel like he's a polished... You're not getting the real guy.
What I'm trying to say, I don't care about that shit.
Yeah.
In the car...
He's unbelievable.
He's humble. For him to follow Max for as long as he did in that DRS... look... As much as I don't want him to win and as much as I can't, I'm sick of him winning.
Yeah.
I've got to give it to the guy for how good he actually is.
He's the best we've ever seen.
Well, results-wise. I think there's better drivers, but results-wise, he's the best. Well,
You're right.
What?
No, you're right.
Well, I'd put Senna in that category.
Yes,
I think Senna's arguably the best. I think Alonso's the best of his era as well. Well, at the time, he knocked Schumacher off his, and what he did in that Renault for those couple of years was amazing. But anyway, that's the way I see it moving forward. So,
as a fan, either one of us being right it means it's going to be close. We're not saying it's because it could go either way. Which is what we want.
But what we saw last night is we saw Max make a mistake on lap 1, which put Lewis in the lead.
Yep.
I don't think Mercedes will be pinching themselves. That undercut worked right throughout it. They thought they had the gap for Lewis to get back out in Mercedes.
Yeah.
But that's what could be what decides this championship. It's not so much the drivers, it's just the decisions. The decisions the teams make off track, which makes it super exciting. I mean, Mr. Toto will be fuming. Fuming.
Get that guy angry too.
With track position, Lewis goes on to win it.
Yeah.
Max had nothing for him in that first stint. It was Mercedes stuff up in the pit stops that allowed Red Bull to win. And, I mean, the team said it on the radio afterwards. It was our fault, mate. So
don't know what happened there. Sorry, mate.
But that's motorsport.
Yeah.
That's what.
Sometimes, like, your team does amazing things and gets you good positions. Sometimes they can lose it for you too. It's why it's actually a team sport as much as it looks like an individual sport.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Great for Max, though. I'm stoked for him.
Yeah, and
stoked for Max.
Good to have Hamilton, like we've mentioned, chasing. Because you see a hungry, like, secretly, if he kind of, like, cools down after this race and he's fuming and he's frustrated he didn't get the win, he's going to be so competitive coming into the next two of this triple header, because that guy loves to chase. Like he needs that internal motivation to have something to go for.
All right, so we got 2 Red Bull rings coming up, double header.
Ooh.
That's traditionally been a Red Bull track for the last.
Yep.
But
this isn't a traditional Red Bull kind of car setup, is it? It's kind of. It's changing a bit more to straight line speed than medium speed corners. So
you're not wrong.
It's not the Red Bull of old. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting.
I don't love the Red Bull ring.
Whoa.
I mean, it produces some good racing, but the track, I just feel like I've seen it so much in the last 3 years.
Because we have. We've seen it so much.
You know, I can literally drive a lap sitting here looking at it, just going, and I don't play video games, so I wouldn't know the track that well.
I know it inside out.
But I can know it inside out. So, anyway, some big
The
breaking.
McLaren was good there last year, so it's got some hope.
It's good. It's what we want.
That's it. And if Danny can treat this as like a little mid-season testing, because he's got 2 weeks in a row. Yeah. That's what we want.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope.
Beautiful. Well, end of the race.
Let's jump into some fantasy. Alrighty. You guys are doing great things in the fantasy. Keep it up. We love it. It is so good to be able to just jump in and just get a laugh out of some names. All right, I'm going to rip through some real quick.
All right.
When I was in GP2, I think that's a little Karoon shout out from Alex B. Mission win later, which is Steen N. The offendable Californian Muppet from Manus, you legend.
Manus.
Sir Lewis Marathon.
We need to get Manus a guest spot on here.
I think we're going to
have to make that happen.
Make that happen, Manus.
Fans' choice.
Third best league in the team. From Jordan.
That's more fun at yours truly.
Yep. How many French jokes can one race have? From Glen A. And the names of the Grand Prix races are so long. From Thomas B. Alrighty, so...
No, there's a better one than that.
Well, yeah. Get in there.
They call me Barrichello Koala.
Well, I was just about to get that. So they call me Barrichello Koala is leading James M. Absolutely dominating.
That is one of the greatest names. If you're not from Australia, you probably don't get that. We used to have a chocolate. Caramello Koala. Yeah. Barrichello Koala.
And then in second, and also this week's best team with 353 points... Mega Driver Max and Turbo Perez. Max ended up getting 147 with the Mega Driver. That's huge. So this is Red Bull's year 8.0, and then in third Olympic RT21.
Nice.
Campy, you're on 22. You're in 22nd. I'm in 47th, and James has fallen all the way back to 53rd. What a loser.
Jim has.
Yeah.
How much credibility has that guy got? Very little.
Like, it's losing it every day, really. Let's be honest. That guy.
We do miss you, Jim.
Well, we'll say that on the podcast anyway. That's for sure.
I miss you.
Campy, next week.
It's not the same there, Jim. He's a good host. Yeah, we get through all right. We've done well. We've done real well.
For just a couple of Thomases here hanging out.
Just a couple of tea plebs.
Couple of teas.
Yeah, I like it.
Mate, ripping two podcasts.
We've got.
We'll see you next week in Styria.
Yeah, we've got.
For which ring? The Red Bull ring, the Hungary ring? One of the rings.
Red Bull ring, isn't it?
Campy doesn't know which ring's the ring. It is the Red Bull ring this time, though. We'll see you there.